Okay, good day everyone. So we are now on lesson 10, which is entitled as the tour operation cycle. So in this lesson, we're going to discuss the various steps and processes in which the tour operator undertook in order for them to be able to create a feasible and of course a good tour package that we are now currently enjoying as a traveler, or the product that we're going to sell in the market as a travel retailer in the form of a travel agency. So now let me brief you onto the topic outline of this presentation. So we have five major topics under consideration in this lesson. So we have to discuss the different stages of the tour operation cycle, in which I will highlight the importance of the various time spent inside the office and outside the office. And next one will be going to discuss the component of the planning process. Of course, it is essential for us to really understood or have a working knowledge on the various consideration we're doing the planning stage of a tour package. Of course, if a tour package is poorly planned, of course, that will translate into a not so feasible tour packages. Of course, we need to make sure that there is a sufficient demand that will support our tour package. At the bottom line, of course, we are a business. We are, of course, should earn our revenue through our product. So that's how important is a good planning for tour packages. Next is, of course, contracting with your travel suppliers. Now, this also highlights the importance of securing a reliable and trustworthy travel partners or suppliers. Because at the end of the day, you would realize as a tour operator, you're not the producer of your own product, but merely you are uh, the combiner or the joiner of this independently could be independently purchased travel services. Because if you poorly select your hotel partner, of course, that will translate to a poorly designed tour package because of the quality of the rooms is a reflection of the service that we provide as a tour operator. So it is with diligent and prudent that us as a tour operator should be able to really inspect and consider and of course gauge the capability of our travel suppliers, whether or not they meet the standard that we are requiring to them. So if in case that they don't meet that, or in case that that the standard is beyond the acceptable range, of course, a good tour operator should might be considering other alternatives as well. So next is costing. Costing is the bare bones of this operation because costing is so important that we have to really emphasize that into one more lesson. So in this lesson, we're going to discuss the costing that are commonly practiced for the outbound tour operator. Because as you know, there is a different types of costing, a detailed one, and of course, a much more simpler one, or I could call it the pre-cost pre-costed components because it's already done by your inbound tour operator partner in abroad in the perspective of a outbound tour operator. Now, if you're doing the inbound here, the costing would be, will be a lot more different and detailed in a manner that I'm going to present in lesson 11. So next is the proposal and quotation. So proposal quotations are not the end, but the start of the transaction. So of course, proposal and quotation should be diligently prepared of. Now next, to start tour operation cycle. So we have eight steps or cycles that each one, of course, these cycles are repetitive, and of course, every tourist or every guest that comes in our firms undergoing this kind of cycle. So basically, if you have something that for planning, let's say the planning has already or you have already come up with a tour package. So of course, they will be the tourists will going to undergo the quotation phase. So basically, planning, contracting, costing are preparatory steps. So there is a limited to non interaction with the client because of course we're doing this in consideration to them, but of course they are not part of the planning process. Except if you invite some of your client or invite some of your target market to have a what we call focus group discussion or market introspective interviews. So in that case, but in practice that is rarely done because of The tour operator could um, carefully gauge what does the market would want or what does the market expect out of them. So basically, um, these stages, planning, contracting, costings are in the Philippine setup are free from customer or client intervention. So now, of course, these are vital. This step is a vital initial steps. So if you're starting a tour operation business, a concentration or devotion of times are allocated in planning, contracting, costing of your tour package because your tour package creates your product and your product creates a good or reliable tour operation company or not. Because if your tour product is poorly planned, of course, that translates to poor marketing. If your tour product is poorly executed, that translates to, of course, the service. Now, if your tour product is poorly cost, meaning to say not all costs are considered, not all costs are priced in, of course, that translates to a financial disaster. So now, let me orient you to the different tour operation cycles. So the first step is, of course, the planning. So when we do plan, so everything in our life should be need to be planned, or of course, the adver or the wise adage of if you plan to play if you plan to if you plan to fail I mean if you fail to plan you plan to fail, so mean to say uh, the absence of plan clearly undermines our capacity to clearly see what we're going to do, what we're going to those measures that could be taken uh, that could somewhat help us along the way when or basically plan another advantage that I personally believe in when do planning is that planning helps us clarify our objective because sometimes you lost your way, you don't know what's the reason why you're doing these things, and to remind yourself, of course, there is a good plan to do that. So if you see the plan every day, if you know the plan by heart, of course you will be going to be reminded of your objectives, and plan are basically the written form of your utmost intention in your personal application of this. Now, in business application, planning is also important because when we do business, of course, we are spending resources in terms of cost, money, in terms of human resources, the time of our employees, and of course, our reputation or capital or social capital. Now, in planning tour packages, there are some considerations that you might take. So we will going to discuss that more vividly, especially for you students, that because you're going to present your tour package proposal to our invited guests. Next is contracting. Contracting is basically the negotiation undertook by the tour operators with different travel suppliers, or it may be possible the negotiation of the outbound tour operator to a inbound tour operator or vice versa. These are a form of contracting. Next is costing. Costing is really important. Of course, costing does not entail algebra, trigonometry. So no, it's basically a basic arithmetic function. So basically, if you know how to divide, subtract, multiply, and of course divide, that is you're good to go. Now, quotation. Quotation are of course these are actually, in real life, quotation is not so much of a problem for us, especially if your firm is well established. So somebody or a guy already have a pre-template of your quotation. So basically, what you're going to change there is just the name of the addressee, and of course, if there are some certain details that needs to be add up, for example, extra bed. So for extra bed, so what you're going to do, basically the price is the same if you're going to have the triple sharing or extra bed, so the price is the same. So uh, some hotel do give extra bed discount, so it might be put up into a consideration in your costing. Another common deviation for the template are if the passenger has an extra, let's say a child passenger. So a child passenger has no bed, they will share bed with their parents. So basically, you just had to add a little for the extras, such as extra cost for the tours, extra cost for the meals, etc. So these are some variation. But in day-to-day practice, there is already a template that is developed. So what you're going to do is basically change the addressee, and of course check if there is a need to be added or things to be modified, such as if the passenger does not fit into the group departure date, or the passenger needs to have a different service class. For example, they prefer to go for business class rather than economy class. So you need to change the quotation for the air ticket, or the you need to include the cost for the business class ticket. So that's some of the usual changes for the quotation. Now, there are some times that you're going to require to totally change the quotation because the passenger is requiring you to form a certain group. So let's say they would want to have a designated, or they would want to have a private group among themselves. Let's say a big family composed of 20 person. So they could already form a group. So in that case, you can, of course, that is most necessary to create a separate quotation. You ask your tour operator to quote you separately, and then you combine the air ticket plus the quotation of your tour operator plus your markup, so it creates your quotation. So, of course, quotations in normal, as I emphasize, quotations are normally done using a series of tariffs. No? So may tariff naman tayo siya. Don't be too overwhelmed about quotation. Now, reservation. So when your client is now convinced that they're going to do, or let's say they're going to take your tour package, so it's about time to reserve their slot. So in reservation, this is a common practice, right? Let's say you ask the passenger name, you ask who do the, or who is the contact person who who is in charge of the reservation for the group, the contact information, the mobile, cell phone, the Facebook, or whatsoever in forms of that you can contact them. Another thing is if there is any special request that the passenger would need, such as if one passenger has a wheelchair, one passenger has a medical problem. Of course, you should be able to clearly set the expectation then. So if you're traveling with the third world countries or undeveloped countries, of course, if you have a third wheel, or let's say passenger will wheelchair bound or wheelchair assisted passenger, of course that will be very much of the challenge for them. So now, as a tour operator, of course you set the expectation that this destination could accommodate you, but of course that will entails a lot of inconvenience on your part. So basically, that's how we do it. That okay. Um, Now, after that, of course, the service delivery. So as you would notice that most of them are highlighted in red and one is highlighted in black. So it emphasizes that service delivery is performed outside the confine of the office. Service delivery is basically, as sabi nga nila, 80% of the time that we spend for reservation or to reservation are spent inside the office. So basically, 80% of the time from planning to evaluation are all done inside the office. But the 20% of this time is geared towards the service delivery system. So basically, it's spent in the field outside the premises of the office. So, and again, but the 20% of that is the 80% of most complaint occurs in the service delivery system. So, in the service delivery. So, you rarely hear passenger complaining about the costing because actually ako, based on my personal experience, wala akong narinig na gano'n because in the first place, if they are not agreeable with the price, they will just walk away from the conversation. Ganun lang naman siya. You rarely hear passenger complaining evaluation because at the end of the day, they could it's not so relevant for them part. So basically, they could go on without that. You rarely hear passenger complain about poorly designed tour package because they don't mind. Diba? So, ganun lang siya. But, of course, we hear a lot, or let's say most complaints are occurring during the service delivery system. So, most complaint of our guests or most, or for example, these are associated with the service provisions. For example, if the flight is delayed. So of course, it's beyond our control as a tour operator, but of course, you will hear complaints na why they anticipate that there is a delay, we could change the date, etc. So of course, there are some service bad moments that are beyond our control that could be, of course, unavoided in this case of the flight delay. So what we're going to do is, of course, is just to adjust the time. Of course, our tour guide will wait for them until they will come to the destination. Now, another complaint is about the room. So the expectation of the room is not so well communicated to our guests. For example, the room is for a standard room, so they're expecting a deluxe. So basically, that creates a service dissatisfaction. So I mean, that will be at the fault of the tour operator because they didn't really spell out or create the expectation of the guests. Another concern is, of course, the food, because sometimes the passenger or the reservation officer forgot to ask if there is allergens or, let's, for example, food preference for the group. So in that case, that will be a very much of a trouble for the tour guide and the tour or the field officer which supervise them. So, yun. So these are some of the problems that we encounter. Of course, service delivery is very essential in that sense. In order to ensure quality among our delivery system, we have a separate branch or separate division or office or department that focus more of the service delivery. That is what we call the field office or the field department. So in the third department, you will have the two one. We have the operation department, which is concerned about the planning, contracting, costing, or quotation, reservation, accounting, and evaluation. And you have the other one, which is the field department or the field office. Basically, they are concerned about service delivery. There are tour guides and the part-time tour guides or freelance tour guides are reporting to this field officer or the one who heads the field department. So basically, that's how complicated are the tour operations. So basically, service delivery is such a very important function. It's the 20% of the time that the tour spent, but the 80% of the complaint comes in this particular uh, stage, service delivery. Okay, so now let's move on. Now, when you're considering tour operation cycle, so now let's go to the first stage, planning. So when you do a plan for your tour package in your proposal defense, so these are some of the important consideration that you might hmm, observe or you might put into a perspective. So the first one is I often ask my juniors about what's your intention of creating this package? To whom do you prefer or to whom do you want it to be sold? So kanino mo ba siyang ginagawa? So now it's very important for us as a planner of these packages to really cut kanino ba natin siya ginagawa or to whom do we intend these packages to be sell off? So para kanino? So that's the first question. So of course there are many market that you can capture with. So we have the family, leisure group, corporate group, we have the sports group, etc. So napakarami yan. Now, if you're a tour operator that would like to sell um, common tour products, let's say for example, you are appealing for a broader perspective of client, of course, your tour package should be appealing to the wider audience or your package is multi-purpose package siya na tinatawag. For example, if you're planning for a family tour package, of course, the tour package should be family friendly. It should involve shopping for mommy, um, food for daddy, gastronomy for daddy, entertainment for children, amusement park for them. So this is a family friendly package. Now, a family friendly package could also be sold as a honeymoon package in the form of a young couple or newlywed couple. So it could be sold as a barkadahan package in the form of incentive or let's say a family travel or incentive trip for your corporate account. So in that sense, it would appeal to a broader scope of market. But of course, it won't give you a what we call the UPS or unique selling proposition, because everyone in the market or everyone in the industry is also offering that kind of package. So what's your competitive advantage then? So what makes you unique is, of course, the battleground here would be the pricing strategy, which among you that offers the same tour itinerary offers the lower or the cheapest price. So basically, we are competing in price. So if you're selling or your unique selling proposition is based on price, of course, the quality of your client is also price sensitive, and of course, they are getting much more value for what they paid for. So that's their logic there. So of course, any mistake on your part or any other unafforded or unanticipated costs might have a very serious implication to the quality that you provide, because I mean, you have a limited margin to play with, right? So that's one possible UPS or unique selling proposition, the cost. But for me, that's not competitive. Now, another possible unique selling proposition based on your target market is to capture a specific target market that are unique and, of course, hard to serve, and they are what we call the niche marketing. So for the niche, let's say I'm going to create a tour package based on scuba diver. So not all people are engaged in scuba diving, and of course there is a technical difficulties, so that majority of the tour operators will be having a difficult time of understanding this kind of market, because they need to have the necessary training and specification and expertise to do offer this kind of packages. So they need to secure special, reliable, specialist, local tour operators. So in that case, your unique selling proposition is that you're offering a specifically tailored package to them. So that's your unique selling proposition. So it's custom built for them. So for scuba divers. So another tour package that you can come up with, another special niche is of course yung mga pet lover. So of course, when you're bringing your pet abroad, there is so much documentary work. So I mean, it's easier for a child, or it's easier for a child to go abroad rather than a dog. So sa dog kasi ang daming requirements eh. So you need to check for the vaccine, you need to check for the health certificate of the dog, etc., etc., etc. Of course, if that's your target market or pet lover siya, it's quite a lucrative one, because you can charge premium together with the scuba diver, because not all the operator could accommodate that. So for that, you can charge premium. So you're not fighting for the price, but you're fighting for the service, the quality of the service. Of course, expectations are high on your part, because they know they are paying you an extra because of of your promise of your service to them, or the uniqueness of your package. Okay. So these are some examples that you can explore or consider when you're doing the planning process. Next, of course, the destination. So your target market should be in harmony with your chosen destination. Of course, if you're choosing a family-oriented tour packages, the destination should be a family-friendly destination. So, for example, we don't book our family tour packages in places like Jakarta. Why? Because in Jakarta, in fairness to them, uh, not so much are known to Jakarta, especially if we're considering the theme park. Medyo hindi siya ganun ka-family friendly. And of course, the food is not so, I mean, the palate for Filipino palate is not so responsible for the Jakarta or the Indonesian dishes. So medyo not so family friendly destination. In my perspective lang ha, baka sabihin nyo judgmental ako. Okay. So in my perspective lang as a tour operator. Now, what would be a better destination of choice if you're going to have a family tour? I could recommend Hong Kong, of course, because they have a many food selection. They have good theme parks, international theme parks such as Disneyland or the local theme parks such as the Ocean Park. So another one is Singapore. Singapore is good. They have theme parks as well. There's in Sentosa, Universal Studio, and of course for the food, Singapore is quite diverse. So you can have gastronomy tours. So as to satisfy the palate of your parents, and of course the children could have more selection or food. Of course, the standards is there. They have the fast food or common food that we know. Uh, for destinations such as yung scuba diving, of course, the destination should be exotic and or medyo of course, it should have an access to the sea or the ocean. So one example of that will be a destination in Palau, Guam, or actually Philippines is a good destination for diving. So it's hard to compare with other places. I could compare Philippines with Australia for the Great Barrier Reef. So it's one package that we are. Of course, that is very expensive because considering the technicalities and of course the technical equipment requirement, etc., expertise that are included in the package. Next is for pet lover. So the destination should be a pet loving destination. Almost naman po lahat sila pet loving destination, but the problem is yung transportation. So there are some carriers that are very sensitive about bringing your pet on board or during on board sa cabin, because normally we allowed pets sa cargo. Bibihira kasi yung sa loob ng cabin mismo. So, of course, there are some pet owners that they don't like or parang they are hesitant of that kind of idea because they would want to see their pet because it's already a part of their family and they don't want parang some sort of parang they feel it's some sort of mistreatment to their pet. Parang ganun. So yeah, the challenge here is how would you work with the airlines or transportation company for that scenario. So that's one particular area that can work with. Next, duration. For duration is, of course, we're referring here to the amount of time. So the common logic that we use for duration is that if the passenger has a short haul flight, let's say short haul flights around 2 to 3 hours, fly from Manila or fly from their origin, the standard package should be around 3 days and 2 nights. Bakit? Because that's suffice. They have ample amount of time to enjoy the destination because the flight is only for 2 hours and 3 hours. So ganun lang siya. So they're going to spend the transportation of air travel around 6 hours or 4 hours. So plus the transfer, let's say 1 hour for transfer. So approximately around 9 hours for the whole duration. So that is justifiable. Now, if you're going to have a long haul flight, let's say 8 hours or 12 hours, of course, 3 days and 2 nights are hindi siya maganda because 8 hours times 2 would be 16 hours. So 16 hours out of the 3 days, 2 nights is, of course, almost already 2 days, right? So let's say we go to London. So from Manila to London, so that is 12 hours. So example, so your day one is just only spent for traveling, and your day three, which is your departure back, is spent in traveling. So you only spend 1 day in London, yet you paid around 70,000 pesos for the air transportation. So now, the more logical way to do so is, of course, to increase the duration. So for that, Manila, London, we are normally around 7 days to 6 nights, or the least is 5 days, 4 nights. So for London, or for the long haul flights. Okay. For duration, also we might consider also the activities of the area. For example, there are some destinations that are lacking of activities. For example, a place in Malaysia called Kota Kinabalu. So sa Kota Kinabalu, parang if you're going there for shopping, parang maboboard ka because all of their activities are mostly nature related. And of course, not all of our client are, I mean, nature lover or active in sports. So in that sense, spending 4 days, 3 nights in Kinabalu is of course not a good idea. So that will be much more preferred if you can have the 3 days, 2 nights. Okay. So of course you have to assess that based on your assessment. Next, category of accommodation. So for the accommodation, we are referring here for the hotel. In the case of the hotel, because the hotel has different types of rooms, no. So they have the what we call the standard room, deluxe room, and of course the suites. So for the deluxe room, of course, what's the difference of deluxe to suite? Deluxe rooms are basically the middle class, or they are in between the standard and the suite. So they are not so they are spacious enough, but not so spacious special bubulol ako, sorry, not so spacious when compared with the suite. So basically there are some extra. Let's say you can have your own bathtub or jacuzzi inside the deluxe room, but of course you don't have the butler service, or you don't have the baby piano, or extra room, or your private kitchenette inside the deluxe room. So basically, of course, the cost has the implication. The standard room has less cost compared with the suite room. So in terms of quality and service, of course, the suite room has a much more better accommodation. But of course, in reality of the tour operation, we are only dealing with, as you know, standard room and deluxe room. So for me, based on my experience, if I am arranging tour packages abroad, let's say for the destinations such as Hong Kong or Singapore. So for Singapore, the standard rooms are basically okay siya sa atin, kasi talagang ang standard room sa Singapore, pag translate na in the Philippine setup, that is deluxe room for us. So for Hong Kong, you should be very specific talaga kung standard room siya. As in standard room, very essential. Yung parang ano lang siya, as in the standard room that we know in the Philippines, as is lang talaga siya. Now, for abroad destinations such as um, uh, Ho Chi Minh City or Saigon, Vietnam, Myanmar, Burma, Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, I think it's better to prefer to go for the deluxe room. Anyway, the difference is just around $10. So of course that would create much more good experience for the guests, because we're not so, the standard there is for some hotel are beyond our standard. So just to play safe, of course, you have to carefully select your hotel, and of course, you have to carefully select your rooms. Okay. So for me, I'm doing it for the deluxe. So anyway, that's $10 or $5 difference. So not so much. Now for the airlines, so we are having the, normally, when you fly Cebu Pacific, that's mono class. Air Asia, that's mono class, meaning to say all are economy class. So for Philippine Airlines and other airlines, they have the two category. They have the business class and the economy class. So ganun lang naman siya. For other airlines, they have the much more wider category, and especially true for the long haul flight. So let's say for example, Singapore to Brisbane, or Singapore to London via Singapore Airline has a different four categories. So they have the suites, the first class, the business class, and the economic class. But for Philippine Airlines, is duo class lang siya. So they have economic class and of course the business class. So alam niyo naman yung difference niya, no? For economic class, you can recline the seat pero not so much. For the business class, it's much more comfier. You can recline it. Uh, which a wider angle. There is more leg room. Of course, the food served in a business class is not chicken but turkey. But for the economic class, that's chicken. In the business class, the food served there is beef. In the economic class, that's pork. So actually, I'm just wondering why siguro it's a cost initiative of the airlines to change the menu. Kasi dati when I'm flying Philippine Airlines, the veal or yung mga the menu is basically they have chicken or beef or fish. Ganun siya eh. But nowadays, nung recent flight ko, I noticed that they changed the menu from chicken and pork. for the economy class. Kasi nga, mas mura siguro yung pork. Di ba? So, yun lang. Kasi normally I order beef kasi mas okay siya sa akin. Anyway, so that is for the category of accommodation for airlines. Now, for cruise ship, in case that you're going to have a business with cruise ship, of course, there are different category based on the space of the room because space is gold inside the cruise ship, and also for the view. So when you have the what we call the inside stateroom, so inside stateroom has no view, no ocean, no access to the no access to the view or no access at the window. So we have the ocean view room. So they have a window that they can open, but they cannot go outside the window. So we have the balcony. So alam niyo naman yung balcony or veranda. This a type of parang malaki siyang window that you can go out. Okay. And of course, we have the suites. So as explained later, that suites are much more spacious, quality, etc. Of course, the most expensive. Now for meal plan, so next, some consideration for meal plan. For meal plan is, by the way, before I forgot, in your accommodation, of course, that is also essential for you to select the location. For hotel, the most preferred option for Filipinos are those hotels that are located or conveniently located to those areas that are known for shopping. So ganun siya, no? For Filipino travelers, we are very much found of shopping or night markets. So if your hotel is medyo malayo siya sa shopping outlet or shopping district or shopping something, medyo malungkot ang Pilipino doon. So, of course, when you plot your hotel, when you recommend for a hotel, make sure that there is a nearby night market, nearby grocery store, nearby department store, or there is an access for this kind of amenities. For example, in Hong Kong, most of my client would prefer to have a hotel near to the Nathan Road because Nathan Road has different shops. So dun pa lang alam na nila kung saan makapamili na sila. So pag nilagay ko siya dun sa medyo may kalayuan, let's say dun sa mura siya pero malayo, let's say new territories, mapapatay ka na kliyente mo because of course they need to go outside of the hotel, they need to commute, they need to take the MRT, they need to take the taxi going to their shopping area. And of course, ang Pilipino kasi they shop every night So they shop every day actually. They love shopping. And for me, that's how I observe them. So, yun talagang market natin. So, wala tayong magagawa. We just have to follow them. Next, another thing is, of course, most Filipino prefer to stay sa, yun nga, number one is shopping area. Number two is, the hotel should be situated with nearby train station or has an access to bus. So, tayo kasi mga Pilipino, mas prefer natin train case sa bus kasi may ano tayo. Yung bus kasi nakakaligaw So yung train station, kaya natin yung mga Pilipino, especially if there is an English translation. So yun. Okay, now let's go with the meal plan. So sorry for the meal plan, we're talking here different meal sets, no? So we have the full board, the half board, and of course breakfast only. For common tour packages, as in the complete group package, we have the full board. So most of these full board are often served in buffet style. So para wala na reklamo, para less na yung pagod mo for yung mga allergen, food preference, etc. Now, of course, if you are doing the free and easy package or program, uh, you might often, or you might prefer to use the breakfast only kasi this allow the passenger or the guest to have their own time to explore the gastronomy or to the food of the local cuisine of that place. So for Japan, I think breakfast only is a good option. But if you're in a, let's say, full day city tour, or the time for the tour is very much, let's say, mahaba, of course, yung sa city tour natin, lunch are already included. Kasi alanganin naman kung walang lunch doon. So magugutom yung mga pasero natin. So normally for full day, Mount Fuji and Hakone, Mount Fuji and Gotemba outlet tour, may mga lunch na siya. For full day Disneyland tour, wala. So of course there are restaurant inside the Disneyland, so they have to pay on their own for that trip. So ganun lang naman siya. Next, sightseeing activities, you know, of course, syempre kung ano ba yung mga iconic spot doon. For example, when you go to Japan, what's the iconic spot in Japan? Of course, Mount Fuji. So, of course, that should be included in the itinerary. But sad to say, every time that I go to Tokyo, uh, siguro kasi dahil winter kami pumunta last time. So, we really spot the Mount Fuji. So, yun siya. Medyo malungkot, no? So, every time pupunta ako, wala akong picture ni Mount Fuji. So, hopefully after the pandemic, I will go there. And of course, finally, we'll have some picture of Mount Fuji. Okay, so so yung landmark niya dapat kasama siya sa activity. So as if you have been in Paris but there is no picture of Eiffel Tower. So ganun siya kalungkot, no? So if you've been in Beijing, there's no picture of the Great Wall. If you've been in Singapore, there's no picture of the Merlion. So parang lungkot niya, no? So that's the icon. So of course the icon should be the top priority for the sightseeing tour. So yun siya. Next, mode or class of transportation. Again, for the airline, you have your business class, economy class, etc., etc. So, ganun siya, no? Of course, the airline selection also has an impact to your tour program. So, for example, if the airline is known to be, let's say, Cebu Pacific compared with PAL. Pag Cebu Pacific kasi, sometimes kasi, for example, sa Singapore, hindi kanya dadalhin sa premium terminal, dadalhin kanya sa budget terminal. So, yung budget terminal mo, medyo hindi naman gano'ng kalayong diferensya. Pero of course, yung sa bagahe, alam niyo na, medyo hindi gano'ng kaganda yung service ng budget terminal kasi nga tinipid or acceptable naman within the tourist range. That's acceptable. But unlike yung sa PAL kasi dadalhin ka nila sa premium terminal sa Changi Airport sa Singapore. So, medyo you will appreciate the beauty of the airport. So, first impression mo kung first time traveler ka sa Singapore is very good. Unlike if you are flying with the Cebu Pacific. So, of course, I mean, for tour operator like us, sometimes kasi option or the mode of transportation, minsan may ibang kliyente, they prefer to book their own air ticket or air transportation. So, siguro they have the mileage or siguro they have contacts or other concerns. And other services, for other services such as souvenir shops, etc., money changer yan. So, you might consider it. So, for Filipino, ang money changer natin, nagiging money changer na yung tour guide kasi pwede ka magpapalit ng pera sa tour guide. Same with Hong Kong. Sa Hong Kong kasi, wala kang Hong Kong dollar, si tour guide pwede magpapalit sa'yo. So, negosyo na rin yan. For Singapore naman, peso, there is a mall in Singapore sa Lucky Plaza sa Orchard Road. They directly accept Philippine peso. So for Singapore. So ganun siya ka-powerful ang Philippine peso sa Singapore. Anyway, sa Singapore kasi marami talagang Pilipino. You won't lose your way. So pag naligaw ka doon, tanong ka lang sa mga Pilipino. So marami sila. Tour escort, of course, is considered. So whether or not the tour is escorted or not, depending on your arrangement with the group. So if it's a private group na nire-require talaga may escort para safe na safe sila, of course, you have to build in the cost for the tour escort. Of course, the tour escort will require you to have a room, separate room. Of course, the room should be preferably with the same hotel, no? So for example, kasi minsan dahil sa pagtitipid natin, okay lang naman yun. Let's say may hotel na malapit na parang motel na or one-star hotel lang siya. Tapos yung guest mo, naka-check-in sila sa four-star hotel. That's okay. Basta as long as malapit siya. But in most cases, just to ensure the safety of our guests, yung tour escort din, naka-stay sila dun sa hotel mismo ng guests para of course, syempre masaya ako doon pag ako yung tour escort, di ba? I enjoy the same perks with my group. Next. Okay, let's now go with contracting. So contracting is basically negotiation. So we have the preparatory stage. The T or the tour operator must be able to ascertain the following characteristic of a good travel partner. Kasi syempre, your quality assurance relies on the selection of your travel partners or yung mga travel suppliers mo. A poor hotel, not so good or rusty hotel, of course, leads to certain problem in your tour package, diba? So, syempre, kailangan competitive tayo. Okay, so what are the criteria? Of course, we have the credibility, service worthiness, price competitiveness, service reliability. So these are some of the issues that you might consider in choosing your own travel partner. The same is true when your travel partner is also doing or would like to do business with you. Kasi syempre ikaw, ga-apply ka rin sa kanila. They will check with your credibility, kung member ka ba ng mga association for, let's say, in the Philippine setup, member ka ba ng Piltoa, kilala ka ba, known ba yung brand mo, etc. Your potential to attract clientele, track record, credit worthiness. Because if you have good credibility, potential for growth, you have a good track record, and your worthiness is flawless, of course, they would offer good rates to you. Kasi di ba yung mga tour operators natin, as well as yung mga hotel owners, airlines, they don't just give standard rates, no. So they are giving preferential treatment to those partners that they may deem for the long run. So, syempre, kung ikaw, tingin nila sa iyo, hindi ka pa kilala, hindi ka pa nila, wala ka pa masyadong track record, yung rates mo or yung kanilang bibigay na rate sa iyo is not as competitive as compare with their long-standing partner. So, ganun siya. Ganun sila magmahal. Kasi nga, syempre, unahin muna nila yung long-standing partner nila, alagaan. So, meron silang preferential rate doon. So, ibig sabihin, may discount sila na, let's say, kahit sabi mo $5 difference siya, ang laki ng difference niya, no? If you're let's say, yun nga, sabi ko nga, di ba, if we're only competing for the price, $5 is a big amount for us. Kasi $5 times 100 person. So, that's a big amount, di ba? So, of course, your competitive advantage is somewhat eroded if we're competing for the price in that sense, if we're not well established. Now, ang chance lang po siguro ng mga hindi pa well established is, of course, to create their own unique, or they should target and special niche for their product. Kasi syempre, if your itinerary is unique in the market, it's totally new, and of course, the demand would support that. Of course, that would create a demand on your package despite your disadvantage in terms of pricing, kasi nga may preferential rate ang mga travel suppliers natin. Next. Okay, how does the system work? Okay, so the system works like this. So you have the travel suppliers. Let's say we have the All Nippon Airlines. So that is an airline company. So they decided to sell, let's say, 100 seats to an inbound tour operator. Let's call it JTB. So Japan Travel Bureau is an inbound tour operator in Japan. So now, ako, outbound tour operator ako sa Philippines. Let's say my company is this one, Globetrotters Inc. So let's say we're going to send people in Japan. So we'll be using or we'll be partnering with JTB to provide the services. So yun siya. So basically, kaya nga madali na lang mag-compute pag outbound ka, because the costing are already done by your inbound tour operator. They're going to send the quotation to you. Now, of course, the nitty-gritty of this will be on the part of the inbound tour operator. Ganun lang naman siya. Of course, syempre for domestic fares, si Ana or si All Nippon Airlines will be dealing business with the JTB, hindi sa'yo. Ganun siya. Kasi, syempre, hapon sa hapon, so we could the beauty of this is that the outbound tour operator could benefit from the special relationship of JTB with All Nippon Airlines to get more competitive rates compare if our client would book online. For domestic fares, kasi pag domestic fares, may special rates ang JTB or local tour operator sa Japan sa mga Japanese airlines, kasi they have this kind of special preferential treatment. But for outbound, let's say yung Manila to Japan, of course, we as the outbound tour operator could arrange that. So kami na yung bahala doon. Kasi mas mahal na sila. They need to, of course, mark up for the services. Of course, syempre kung dalawang markup ni JTB, markup ko. So syempre mahal na, di ba? So kami na yung bahala doon. But for the domestic, normally what I do is I let the tour operator handle the domestic. Para kasi may discount kasi siya. I often see that. So rather than I book the domestic part in my system, so sila na. So, okay. Now, when we do the contracting, so this detail should be clearly spelled out in your contract or in your negotiated fare or negotiated rate. So, of course, the class, category, and type. So, as we did mention that there are rooms, but not all standard rooms are equal, right? There are standard rooms with window or standard room with garden or sea view for the resort. So, syempre, alam natin na pag garden view, mas mura siya compared with a ocean view room. So, that's for the resort. For the for the hotels, luckily for the hotels, for the standard rooms, lahat yung may bintana. So, we rarely see a room na walang bintana. Kasi yun, hindi na binibenta ng hotel yun. Okay? For category, again, category, commonly divided to standard room, deluxe, and suites. Okay. Now, next is, of course, if the rate includes taxes, it should be stated. If there is an insurance, stated. Service fee, and tipping. So, of course, dito tayo nagkaka-problema sa tipping. Ang mga Pilipino kasi, alam na nila pag nagbayad sila, yun na yun. So, let's say, nagbayad sila ng tour package sa'yo. Okay, so ano, tatanungin ka naman nila, ano pa po yung hindi kasama po dito? Syempre kasi sabi mo, sir, hindi pa po kasama yung tipping nyo, din nyo na po babayaran sa Japan or sa Hong Kong or sa Taiwan. So ngayon, ang problema natin, pag nandoon na si client, medyo nakakalimutan na may tipping pala. So yun. So ako, ang practice namin, dito pa lang, kung pwede nang i-pre-collect siya, pini-pre-collect ko na para pagdating sa Japan, o ito na yung tip nila, o huwag mo na singilin yan. See? So ngayon, may disadvantage at disadvantage siya. Ang disadvantage nun is number one, pag nakalimutan ng tour operator mo na pre-collected yung tips, or let's say, hindi nasabi ni tour operator sa tour guide na pre-collected yung tips, sinisingil pa. So that's one problem. So of course, you have to make sure that you have this. You have to make sure that the tour operator relies the information to their tour guide. So para hindi ma-double singil. Okay. Of course, kanya-kanyang technique yan. For Hong Kong, of course, Filipino are so much aware of the tipping guidelines. So, syempre, kami, sinisingilan namin. Or, depende yan. Depende sa negotiation nyo. Of course, everything is flexible naman. Okay? So, pero pag group, let's say it's a group of 100 person, singilin nyo na. Kasi syempre, hirap naman yun. Pag doon pa magbabayad isa-isa yun, di ba? So, syempre, parang to avoid the problem, let's say, lalo na kung escort ka, ikaw na, bago pa lang pumunta doon, singilin mo na. Kasi syempre, ang hirap doon mangolekta. Lalo na pag magsha-shopping, tapos after na shop. Ang tipping kasi normally binibigay siya after the tour, di ba? After the tour, nag-shopping ng mga kliyente. O, paano kung inubusan nila yung pera nila doon sa shopping? Problema ka pa. So, I mean, you have to think about that. Next is applicable concession. So, if you have free, let's say for normal practice natin for airline is 25 seats plus 1. For cruise ship, it's 10 cabin plus 1. Or for hotels, depende sa hotel, if there is 20 rooms plus 1 room. So these are some arrangement. So credit line, for credit line, the terms, gaano ba katagal ka bago magbayad sa kanila, sa tour operator? Kung wala kang credit line, you have to pay on the spot. But for group, you have to pay initial. Siyempre, pag group yan, malaki, no? So you have no credit terms dyan. So you have to place a deposit to make sure that there is a guarantee. And then finally, full payment. So ganun lang naman siya. For airline, ganun din practice nila. You have to pay 25% of the total cost for your deposit and the rest for full payment. So credit line, if it's a small group lang naman, let's say 5 person or 6 person, perhaps credit line might be extended to you by the hotel. For the airlines, there is no credit line kasi may credit line naman kaso lang it's IATA term. So that is around 1 week. For the hotel, that's 15 days. Or if if you have a good reputation, that is 1 month, 30 days. Another thing is, of course, reservation policy. If the reservation policy natin, no? So for the airlines, you have to read the contract. So sa airlines kasi, sila yung maarte. So they don't want to change name. So they don't want to, those things. For the hotel, I find the hotel much more flexible in your needs and wants. So wala masyadong problema sa reservation policy. Ang ano lang dito, they are very much concerned about the deadline for the initial payment or for the deposits. Cut-off period and of course a deposit period payment. Yan. So, cut-off period also refers to your system na tinatawag natin sa airline kasi ang tawag natin dyan is option date or whether or not the passenger will fly. So, that's the time allocated for the passenger to decide whether they are not pushing or they are backing up. So, ganun siya. Next. Costing. For the costing, so there are, of course, this is a process of determining the actual cost of the tour package. It is divided into two parts. So outbound tour operator, inbound tour operator. Again, we as the outbound tour operator, our costing are already pre-costed by our tour or by our inbound tour operators. So for example, I'm going to have a tour sa Singapore. Of course, yung tour operator ko sa Singapore, na-costing niya na. Bibigay niya na sa akin siya as in term of proposal. So, hindi ko naman siya gagawin na parang, okay, costing tayo sa Singapore. Hindi ko gagawin na parang ano siya na, okay, so how much is the bus rate? So, bus rate divided by ganun. So, hindi ko siya gagawin as detailed as possible because the details are already computed by my in-motor operator. And as a matter of fact, syempre kahit gawin ko siya, wala rin ako magagawa because I cannot directly hire a bus company sa Singapore. So, mahirap na trabaho yan. So, to less the problem, my inverter operator will deal with the nitty-gritty. So, you're going to, of course, you're going to do the nitty-gritty or the detailed computation where you're doing the inbound tour operation in the Philippines. So, let's say, ang company namin, let's say may inbound tour operation kami dito. So, of course, kailangan ko computing yung costing ng bus, etc., etc. So, that will be treated on a different video lesson. So, in this case, we're going to concentrate more on the practice of the outbound tour operator. So that is also the style that we're going to adopt for your tour package proposal. Since your tour package proposal is in based on Japan, so that's outbound destination. So we're going to adopt the practices of the outbound tour operator. Okay, so now to discuss. Before you consider costing or anything, so you must be able to understand the three different types of itineraries. So kasi syempre, yung costing mo naka-base ka sa itinerary, no? So kung hindi maayos ang itinerary mo, hindi maayos ang costing mo. Okay? So we have the skeletal, technical, and descriptive. To illustrate them further, here's a sample of a skeletal. So basically, skeletal is the framework of your itinerary. So basically, para lang siyang, you have this day, what you're going to do. You have this day, what you're going to do. Ganun lang, di ba? For this one, day 2 is full day city tour. Wala na, ganun lang. So basically, just to give you an idea kung ano yung dapat gawin. Now, if the skeletal is further expanded, na-expound mo pa siya, you have the technical itinerary. Technical itinerary is commonly used by the travel agent as a reference for their costing. But you can also go for the skeletal. So whichever yung madali sa inyo. Let's say the technical itinerary presents a specific time. For example, you have day 2, tapos a team, tapos what they're going to do, nakalatag siya into a time. So that's technical itinerary. So in our presentation, in our tour package proposal, you are required to present a technical itinerary. Now for the timings, it might be optional to you kasi ako hindi ko style kasi maglagay ng timings kasi sometimes hindi talaga siya nasusunod. So parang maiwasan yung complaint ng mga kliyente, especially for those time sensitive. Yung mga naghahanap ng may complain, mga complainers, hindi ko talaga nilalagay na yung time. Ang ginagawa ko na lang, yung description ng gagawin. Example, travel to Asakusa and this is Sensoji Temple. Then travel to Ueno, explore the museum and park in Ueno, ganun lang siya. Dire-diretso lang siya, walang time. So para I have no obligation to really check the time kasi syempre, though walang traffic sa Japan, pero of course, weather situation, certain things might affect your timing. So yun siya. So for me, it's optional whether you include the time or not. But in my case, I suggest don't include the specific time kasi nga, ang hirap niya sundin. Next. Now, we have the descriptive type of itinerary. This descriptive type of itinerary are commonly used in your brochures. So, it has a picture and, of course, it's full of flowery words that further describe the itinerary. So yun siya, may mga picture, tapos talaga in detail yan din describe yung itinerary mo. So now, what are the type of itinerary should be included in your tour package proposal? I suggest na it should be the technical or the descriptive if you want. Okay. Now let's go for the costing of outbound tour operator are pre-computed by your partner inbound tour operator. So basically are all taken care of. So built in lang natin talaga siya. So in our exercise or in our final exam, so the source of your costing is you can rely with the Airline website kasi syempre you don't have access, no? So let's be practical. You don't have access with your inbound tour operator. So wala kang kausap talaga na tour operator. So ang gagawin natin just to simulate this exercise is you can refer now your costing materials with the website of different airlines, with the website of hotels, or with the website of different online tour operators such as Klook or Viator or Expedia or TripAdvisor tours or any form of uh, any form of online tour operators that you can use to in order to create tour packages. Yan. Now, of course, it's essential for us to go back with the itinerary again. In this case, I'm going to use the skeletal one because for presentation purposes, mas madali kasi siya. So, ano ba yung una mo dapat alamin? So, first is, of course, the first question to ask for the cost is the air ticket or the transportation cost. Kasi sa day 1, day 2, that's the transportation cost. So we have the round trip ticket, no? So how much is my round trip air ticket? So I check the website of All Nippon Airlines. Now next, after that, okay, considering that, so ano po yung dapat may consider for costing? uh, my style of costing is basically I base that in the itinerary. And of course, I consider everything that I should be costing or I should have include a cost to the itinerary itself. So for this one, day 1 and day 2, so syempre kailangan mo may costing ka for the air ticket or the transportation cost. Now, another cost is, of course, syempre pag landing mo ng Haneda or pag alis mo ng Haneda to Manila, ano pa yung kailangan mo besides the air ticket? Pwede ka ba maglakad from the hotel going to the airport? Or pwede ka bang kumuha ng sarili mong taxi going to the airport? Of course, that is inconvenient for the guest. You might include to have the transfer service. So, ganun po siya, no? So, for day 1 and day 2, the cost or the costs natin dyan is air ticket plus transportation or air ticket plus transfer service. So in that sense, I got this cost. So for day 1 and day 2 cost, I have $450 per head or per pax. So that's my cost, inclusive of taxes and surcharge. Pero hindi pa po kasama dyan yung terminal fee, no? Saka yung 1,620. Next is, yung terminal fee, again, it should be paid at the airport. And yung 1,620, if there's an exemption, you will exempt that in your quotation. Okay. Next, transfer service, that's $60 per way per pax. So per pax refers to person, per way refers. So we have two ways, right? So 60 times 2. So ganun siya. It's 120. Next, I did do the costing for day 1 and day 2. So day 2, 3, and 4. So yun siya, no? So ano ba yung dapat kong i-consider dyan? So syempre, next thing that you have to consider is how much is your hotel stay? How much is your hotel stay? So hotel. Kasi from day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, you're going to stay at the hotel. So that is 4 nights. Again, the counting of the service of hotel is not per day but for nights. Kasi binabayaran mo yung hotel for nights. Hindi po siya per hour, hindi po yung katulad ng mga alam nyo or alam ng ibang tao na kasi um, medyo ano lang, no? Kasi may kliyente ako na, ba't gano'n 12 hours lang kami? Hindi ko lang masabi, sir, hindi po kasi ito, yung dyan lang, di ba? Okay. So, hindi po tayo motel. We're talking here hotel. So, hotel are based on per night. So, regardless na, for example, nag-check-in ka, let's say, ng midnight. Let's say, 8 p.m. Ang bayad mo is the same check-in hours or pwede kang humingi ng discount pero if most cases they won't give you a discount kasi nag-check-in ka ng 8 p.m. tapos nag-check out ka ng 12. So of course, the same rates, same hotel rate siya with the person who check-in at around 12 o'clock, nag-check out ng 12 o'clock. Diba? So, same rate siya kasi isang gabi lang din naman yon. So, ganun yung logic for the hotel, no? So, again, for emphasis purposes, yung hotel kasi is nakabase siya sa per night. So, if you arrive at the hotel at 8 p.m. tapos nag-check out ka ng 12, so the same rate will apply to you if you arrive earlier, let's say 11, nag-check-in ka tapos nag-check out ka ng 12. So, the same amount will refer to you. Okay? Kasi same night lang siya. Okay, so of course, you have to consider the cost of the night of the hotel. So luckily for most of cases, the hotel have already built in buffet breakfast or hotel breakfast. Next is of course the food. So syempre dito sa full day city tour natin, meron siyang food lunch. For the full day Disneyland tour, wala po siyang lunch. So you have to specify that to your itinerary, no? So kaya po normally we include BLD. So ano yung BLD? Breakfast, lunch, dinner. So pag wala ka nakitang BLD, walang million. So pag nakita mo lang B, so ibig sabihin breakfast lang. And also the tour, the sightseeing tours yan. So, kailangan. Now for the sightseeing tour, it's pretty, madali naman siya kasi these are quoted per tour. Let's say, for the full day city tour, it's quoted separately from the full day city Disneyland tour. So, quoted siya separately. For the inbound tour operator, you have to construct everything. So, you have to, let's say, how much is the rate of the tour guide divided by the number of passenger, how much is the service of the coach divided by the number of passenger, so those things. But for outbound tour operator, it's pretty much more easy. Okay. Now, having that, so I did my costing. So based on the website or based on the tariff or based on a website, let's say you compare it with Klook or Viator, yeah, ito yung nakuha kong rate. So let's say 350 times 4 nights is equals to 1,400. So that is the per night, or let's say kasi that's room, no? So room per night, no? So ganun po siya. So that's 1,400. Yung 1,400 na yan, since one room could accommodate two persons, so that's inclusive of two breakfast then. So I will divide that into two for the half sharing. Now, if your passenger would want to have one single room, so yung 1,400 na yan, yun po yung gagamitin nyo. Now, if the passenger has a companion they will stay in together in a room, so let's say there are two, so you have to divide that into 750. So 750 per pax. So let's say tatlo sila. Paano yun? For the third sharing rate, ang common practice natin is to, of course, to charge them. Parang, we can give a little discount. Let's say, instead of charging them 750, you can charge them 730. But in practice, sa Japan kasi, it is as expensive to get the twin room. So, ang charge natin is 750 pa rin. So, 750 times um, 3. Kasi ganyan naman talaga siya. Pero in this sense, kasi tour package, we're costing everything per passenger po siya, no? Per passenger basis tayo. We're not costing it per room, we're not costing it per way, we're not costing it per nights. Ang basis natin is per passenger. Magkano ba bayaran ng isang passenger to avail this package? And the only condition is, of course, if your costing is based on twin sharing or twin occupancy, there should be a minimum two passenger traveling all together and will occupy a single room or a one twin room. Okay? So, ganun po siya. Now, for Disneyland, so this is my costing, $100. For Tokyo City Tour, that's $100. For Disneyland, that's $150 per passenger. So, in Disneyland po natin, included na po dyan yung kanyang entrance ticket. Of course, the entrance ticket includes everything, rides, etc., etc. Okay. So after that, I did my costing, final costing. So this is a sample quotation or sample costing sheet. So it's pretty much easy. Kasi yung sa book ni Professor Clarabal, Travel and Tour Operations in the Philippines, the costing was presented in the perspective of the inbound tour operator. So dito kasi, it's the costing that we use in outbound tour operator. So though meron din naman tayong video discussion for the inbound tour operator kasi syempre importante rin alam natin paano talaga mag-costing ang mga inbound tour operator. So, but because of the time and restrictions, so we're going to focus more of the outbound. Okay. Air ticket with taxes and surcharge, that's $450 per person plus 120, that's your transfer per way. So day 1, day 2 solve na tayo. Day 1 and day 5 solve na tayo. Now for the day 1 to day 4 accommodation, we have 750 per head or per pax. So that is based on half sharing or half twin sharing, no? So you need to get two passenger that will stay in one room. So ganun po siya. So hindi kasi minsan yung passenger mismo nalilito, no? Or of course they have all the excuse. So akala nila yung 750 na yan, that's good for one. So that's good for them. Hindi nila alam, of course that is good only for you half based on the half occupancy of the room. So you need to get one more. Next is Tokyo City Tour. So that's 100 and then plus full day city tour, that's 150. You add that, the total tour package cost is around $1,570. So yan po yung initial cost natin. And of course, you must check kung ano po yung dapat mong isama dyan. Ano po ba yung dapat mong isama? Tingin ko wala naman. So let's go now. Now, after that, of course, your tour package cost is around 750. Yan. Ganun pa rin naman. Now, you will add markup. So, my markup is $30. So, 15,000, 1,570 plus 30,000, plus 30,000, sorry, $30. So, that's $160. $1,600 or 16,000, $1,600 or 1,600. No? So that's the selling price. Now for the markup, sometimes we often use the percentage formula kasi mas madali mo siya ma-gauge. Anyway, there are both appropriate and both applicable for this type of costing. But ako lang, practice ko lang talaga markup kasi mas madali. At least target ko na, I think kikitain ko $30. So yun na. Okay, mas madali rin siya i-compute kaysa mag-percentage. Ang advantage naman ng percentage, you will have a gauge kung gaano siya kalaki in terms of margins. But anyway, both are acceptable. Now, okay, to end this, we have to check what you have to check for the inclusion of their package. So, meron bang hindi nasama na costing or dapat na isama sa costing na hindi na isama. Check for the exclusions, such as ito yung common exclusions natin because sometimes the passenger will prefer to do it alone or to do it on their own. So, for example, visa, transfer to Manila Airport. Let's say from Cebu sila, paano kami pupunta dyan? So, syempre, sa inyo na yun, transfer to Manila Airport, terminal fee, Philippine travel tax in case that there is a exemption. For example, the guest is a foreign passport holding or dual citizen siya, may US citizen siya, tapos may Philippine passport siya. Siyempre, kung ako yun, gamitin ko yung yung US passport ko. Tapos, pagdating sa check-in na sa Korea or sa Japan, Filipino na ulit ako para mas mura yung rate. Okay? Travel insurance, guide tips, etc. Of course, you have to state the booking in terms and conditions. No? So, yun po yung ating pinaka-importante. Again, when you present that in your PowerPoint or your flyers, so it might highlight or it should highlight the following points. So, what is your selling proposition? So, your selling proposition could be, let's say, you're the most cheapest. Of course, yung value kasi ng cheapest, no, medyo hindi siya competitive, hindi siya sustainable. Kasi hanggang kailan ka mura. Diba? Yun lang naman yun. Next, of course, you can also present that your itinerary is unique. So, ikaw lang nag-offer na ganyang itinerary out of different tour packages. Kasi sometimes parang ano na lang, yung itinerary mo, isa lang kayo ng itinerary, pababaan na lang kayo. Kasi ending no, isa lang yung tour operator nyo kasi. Diba? So, it's better to look for other tour operator that will offer a different itinerary. That will be a source of your competitive advantage. Next is if you have a special niche that will cater for your group. Again, picture, because a picture could paint 1,000 words. And of course, you may refer to the presentation marketing strategies that I have linked in with your with the description of this task. digestible itinerary, accurate. So, dapat yung itinerary natin is not so much overwhelming. Avoid too much wordy. As much as possible, concise and brief lang po siya. Inclusion of the tour package. Don't forget exclusion in terms and booking conditions. So, that's it. So, yun po siya. Now, to end this lesson, I have a question to you. So, if you're going to start a tour company, though it's not really discussed here in this lesson, but I just have to parang I just wonder paano kaya kayo, let's say, just a parang an iceberg parang activity natin. No? So how would you get in touch with the reliable tour operator? Since we are dealing with the negotiation, everything, and also for me to give, or let's say, have the idea on how would you reach with a reliable tour operator. Paano nyo sila makikita? Saan nyo sila hanapin? What will be your means of contacting these persons? Okay, so importante kasi siya eh. If you're starting a business, you look for your travel suppliers, di ba? Kasi your suppliers are your partners. Hindi lang sila third party sa'yo. They are your partners. So if they're successful, you would be, of course, maambunan ka ng pagiging successful nila. If they're, of course, they're poorly, they're not so, they're not so observant with the quality service, syempre, mahahawa ka na rin doon, di ba? So, how would you get in touch with this reliable tour operator? Paano? So, yun lang. So, that's my question to you. And of course, if you like this video, subscribe lang. And of course, share your comments in the comment section below. Okay? So, thank you very much and have a nice day.